how do we innovate, capitalize, build, and develop? And in this panel here today, we're going to be talking very much about how we can do this through the lens of efficiency and economy and tech growth, of course. We've got a great set of guests here. I'm going to introduce them in just a second, but I just want to set our stage here a little bit because we know that bigger is not always better. Right? Resilience doesn't mean strength. It's about the ability to turn constraints or move away from constraints and move into advantages and into a stronger position. And there was an Estonian phrase, I may get this a little bit wrong, so excuse me if I do. It says that we cannot rely on the winds that brought us here to take us further to the future, which I really thought was quite nice because that's what I want us to focus in on here. What are the winds that we need to take us? We've got a great lineup of speakers to do this. We have Minister of Economy and Communications of Estonia, Erkki Keldo.
Hello.
Hello. The Director General of DigitalEurope, Cecilia Bonefeld, Dahl, welcome. The Digital Minister for Digitalization and Deregulation from Ukraine, Oleksandr Tsybort, welcome. And Chief Technologist of Sovereignty from Amazon Web Services, Mustafa Zik, welcome also. So, Erkki, I'm going to come across to you first here and say, what should we be doing and what nations should be doing from an approach for regulatory frameworks in order to ensure that we can compete better on a global scale? What policies and approaches and frameworks do we need to look at differently and do differently in order to be more competitive?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have to do a lot more starting, because let's be honest, and I have been advocating it in every stage, that unfortunately in Europe we have grown a little bit lazy. We are comfortable, our standards of lives are quite high, but at the same time it means there's a lot of new bureaucracy coming in every day and day. But now, as the world has shifted a lot in a couple of recent years, the geopolitical situation, not even in Europe, but all over the world, is quite critical. Now we have to look and actually see what's important to do. So it's easy to say, of course, we have to start simplifying. We have to look what's the European competitiveness edge, advantage, what we are doing now better than everybody else, what we are doing a little bit worse, where we have to take quicker steps. But overall, 2 weeks ago, I was in council with different member state economy ministers, and there we were eagerly talking about, now we have to move. Now we have to do something. And then I reminded a little bit over a year ago when Mario Draghi report came out. Now it's more than a year has passed.
Yes.
What has changed? Then, unfortunately, one of my colleagues said that, Erkki, I agree, but I have been here 5 years, and we have been waiting for change 5 years. So we have talked a lot of different possibilities, what to do. I would say now, we know I guess we know at some level what we have to do. Now we have to start implementing, and we have to focus on execution. It has to happen. Would it be omnibuses? Would it be simplification? Would it be deregulation? We have a lot of insight feedback from the private sector, from the associations. We have all the knowledge. Now it's a question of the will. Are we actually going to do that or not?
Thank you so much. The will, and are we going to act? Cecilia from DigitalEurope, you want to just tell us very quickly, remind us what DigitalEurope is, and give us your perspective on what needs to be done in order for us to be able to innovate and capitalize to be more efficient here in Europe.
Yeah, so DigitalEurope has 42 associations in 35 countries. We represent 45,000 companies in total. And now we also have an office in Washington, so we are one of the first European organizations to also represent tech in Washington. And of course, we are industry. We represent industry towards the policymakers, both on investment and on regulation. We're an EU Plus club, so we are in all the EU countries, but then also Moldova, Ukraine, UK, Norway, Switzerland, and Turkey. So that's who we are. We've been working on the deregulation or simplification, because some people are totally allergic to the deregulation word, but it is really deregulation that we need. We have, Draghi actually told us, 200 billion in extra cost of regulation in Europe, but that's 10 years ago. Since 10 years, we have rolled out much more regulation, and we have 60% that is still not rolled out. And I think the biggest mistake that we did in the EU was that we said, like, okay, we put it on paper, and then we just let everybody do it more or less like they wanted, the countries. And by the way, we don't check before if this paper that we did now on GDPR and AI, whether it actually fits. Do we have the same definitions of data processing, etc.? So it really turned into a big spaghetti bowl. A few examples: the Medical Device Directive overlaps totally with the AI Act. We have one of the world's most strict regulation on medical devices. There is zero risk from the AI and the high risk, so why would you want to put like AI regulation on top of that? Or the data processing mechanism in GDPR and the AI Act, totally different. And I could continue and continue and continue. This adds every time, so we just need to understand this is real for companies. Every time we have to hire a lawyer to figure out the spaghetti bowl in Denmark, in Germany, in Estonia, in France, we are not hiring an innovator. We are spending our money to a large degree on lawyers and trying to comply with unclear frameworks instead of growing across border. Let me give another example. 8% of medium-sized companies in Europe trade across one border. If that is a successful internal market, I don't know. This was not what it was meant to be. It was meant to be an investment framework where companies could grow seamlessly. So there are real problems to solve. So I would say let's untangle the spaghetti bowl, and we have analyzed for 2.5 years all the different clauses from the GDPR to the AI Act, over the sustainability regulation to the cyber regulation, and we know every clause that's overlapping, unclear, or implemented in the wrong way. So it's just take that and start really making a profound, then we can discuss how do you make things that facilitates. And there we have a lot to learn, and I'm sure that we'll hear in a second from the Ukrainians. But how do we create structures and laws and regulations that facilitate? Why is it that we don't have common European tax incentives for technology investments? Mm-hmm. That would create a boom. Why is it that we don't have common procurement of critical technologies or critical capabilities in Europe? That would create a boom in the investments in Europe. How can we basically make sure that our high-risk annex in the AI Act is not totally unproportionate? And again, regulating things that are where there's no high risk. So it's not that we need to remove everything, but there is, I would say, at least 50% that we could either clarify, remove, simplify, and then start looking at what we can do to facilitate. And maybe just one last comment. If we look, we are very, very busy talking about the things that we don't have. Europe leads in connectivity. We lead in energy tech. AI, drone platforms, satellites, everything that's Earth ground control right now, cutting edge. And still we're discussing, do we need a European cloud solution? Instead of saying, okay, how can we make sure that we have, safe incidents and something else? And how do we keep the technologies where we lead? How do we make sure that we boost that market, that we right on top of where we are good, and keep, of course, our market open to allies. If not, I mean, how are we we're gonna do our own business in our own small countries? It doesn't make sense. So I think there is a lot to do on procurement, incentives, industrial strategy to have growth happening across border, and then we just need to untangle this kind of insane cost burden that we have of regulatory compliance.
Thank you, Cecilia. What I'm hearing here is, well, not only have we got the plate of spaghetti, but there's actually a lasagna layer cake on top of that. And that's then keeping us at this 8% that we're stuck at for cross-border business. So let's think about how we can do this different. And Oleksandr, I'd love to hear from you some perspectives on your, as a deregulation hat, the core lessons from Ukraine with your AI innovations, your LLMs, your ecosystem. What can we learn from this? What can other nations learn from Ukraine? And how maybe can we foster and adopt this?
Thank you for the questions. It's really interesting. And I think it's like in Ukraine, our main lessons that we receive from last real cases with AI is that we start with real pain points in our state and move fast on data and APIs. And our AI tools fix inefficiency, not just like headlines. And for example, e-permit project that we was launched last month with a first AI license for business side, where we giving for businesses very fast pre-checking documents and cut waiting time from several weeks to few minutes, like 10 or 15 minutes. And with AI model, LLM model pre-trained, we preparing pre-decision for public servants, and it's like a few minutes just for giving them final decision based on that. And finally, we checking and analytics it in dashboards. And also, AI should serve real public needs, not exist. It's like a own sake, and it's not built like AI just for AI, and like in many cases I've seen before. And why we began with digital registers and clean data when we used AI and built LLM system on a closed perimeter in Ukraine, training LLMs for that case. And also I wanted some about deregulation, because it's like a start our conversation from it. We, since like 2021 year, we start some big deregulation in Ukraine, and it's led by Yulia Sviridenko and Mikhailo Fedorov, and we operating and verifying about 1,000 plus license and permit in Ukraine in different laws and orders, and start this process and big process to deregulate it. And for now we have like 300 plus license and permits that will cancel it, fully cancel it. And other one we built like this re-engineering process, and after that we build digitalizing and going through e-permit system, very fully digital one window to issue licensing businesses for businesses in Ukraine. And it's like next steps we launched last month. It's deregulation dashboard, where we contribute all of problems from business side. Like we have a Pulse platform where we receive feedbacks from business side, different sources of it, and we all of it we contribute in one dashboard, where we trying to converting real problems on business side to real decision from a state, like real acts, orders by Prime Minister, or real changes in laws. And it's really very useful, and very useful for next building like digital products that based on new rules and new policies.
Thank you. So we're having both the sort of government perspectives here, the business perspectives, national perspectives. Mustafa, I want to come across to you, because AI is now critical when it comes to national infrastructure. What do you believe that Europe and nations need to do in order for us to be able to deploy better, secure, sovereign, trustworthy core government functions to be able to serve our businesses also?
It sounds so benign, right? Such a short question that is open-ended and could lend itself to a very long monologue. I'll try to be brief, and I think that Erkki, Cecilia, and Oleksandr already touched up on the most important aspects, right? For us to be able to do that, I'll just reiterate some of those aspects and add a couple of my own. But when we talk about deregulation or regulation per se is obviously not something bad. But on the other hand, it needs to be rooted in realities, and it can't hamper innovation either. And that's something where, I lead various secret programs within AWS where we, a confidential deep dive program where we truly give deep, deep insights to national cybersecurity certification authorities, to intelligence agencies, or to data protection authorities, where actually we count on those entities all over the EU and the EEA to have the resources available to actually want to dive deep with us so that their decisions, their information to their supervisory authorities or policymakers actually yield regulation that is, let's say in my case, or in our case, cloud compatible and sensible, and allows for all those, our EU member state public entities or private sector companies, may they be enterprise size or startups, to be able to tap into something that essentially constitutes global scale investments into security, right, and into agility and into capabilities. So that's key. And with that come things like, if you want to do that sensibly and scalably, regulation needs, on one hand, and Cecilia mentioned, I think, it needs to be clear, and it needs to be rooted in realities. And on the other hand, it also needs to be homogenized. That's why we have the EU after all, don't we? Now, what we see, though, occasionally, and that for some time was also the case with GDPR to a certain degree, is a lot of interpretative room. And that interpretative room, if you look at EU member states, lends itself to interpretations not only on a national level, but I mean, just speaking, I live in Germany, in Munich, for instance, but in Germany we have 17 data protection authorities, one on the federal level, 16 on the state level. If you count in the data protection authority of the churches, it would be 18. So, and all of them wildly independent of each other, which then means that you need to go to courts to get clarity. So that's where we need to be careful. What we need is, how do we ensure, what do the control layers look like within the EU and EEA that our public sector and policymakers are looking for in order to not exclude global scale technologies, but rather be able to tap into them. And that's what we're working hard for, and that's where we're collaborating. I mean, with Ukraine, for instance, Oleksandr, you know this. We've been working with Ukraine very, very closely over the last, not just 4, but especially the last 4 years. 15 petabytes of Ukrainian governmental data traverse AWS, for instance. And that's what we will continue to do, invest heavily, listen to, and work closely with governmental entities and regulators in order to yield regulation that enables instead of limits.
Now I want to, sorry, go ahead.
If I may, if I might add that, to put it in a simple way, like what will be the driving force of change? It will be resources. Let's be real, money, because what we're seeing, we're lacking of it in Europe. Our costs are going up, and we actually are not effective, and it makes the future for different governments or public sectors, it's actually a problem. And let's take, for example, for a private sector, private companies are always looking for effectiveness, how to cut down cost, but at the same time be client-oriented, giving better services, being more effective. That's what we have to learn from the private sector. All public sectors in Europe have to see our centrics will be not customers, but citizens. What can we do more to actually make our services more effective, but at the same time, we have to cut down costs because resources are limited, our population is aging, so this is how we have to perceive the public opinion as well, because otherwise we just don't have the resources to offer all those public services that we are so used to, because all of this actually comes down to resources, and we're short of it.
We're short of it. Did you?
No, just to comment that there is this now omnibus. It's a word in Brussels. Everybody talks about the omnibus, right? So the omnibus is basically a process now where our president, Ursula von der Leyen, has decided that there will be a review of all regulations across all areas. So each commissioner and the EVP has their goal to basically simplify and come up with a portfolio on how to cut the burden, how to create clarity, how to deregulate, the buzzword that we can't say, but hopefully it will be also. And And it's very difficult, right? Because it's still a very, it's the same people who have just made the regulation now need to cut it, and then you go to the parliament, and half of the parties are not interested in doing it, and they just say no. They don't even take the discussion. They just say no. So it is a super difficult process, and I think there will only be results if the country leader says, we will do this. Because if not, the whole system will be, even though they try, there will also be, a long path that might take 5 years. And if you have a decision in 5 years, well, then you will have results in 10. And by then, everything is rolled out. And right now, for example, let me give you an example. The AI Act, Data Act, the standards are not ready. Then you can, blame game, it's the industry that's too slow, or it's the, the guidelines were out too late. But the fact is that we are asking industry to comply with something that doesn't exist. So it's a little bit like telling your kids, go to school, have you read the book? I don't have the book. Well, then you should have the knowledge anyway. So it's like how can you say, a conversation that has gone wrong. And this is, of course, some of the principles that we say, of course, we don't have a enforcement date without the standards being ready. I mean, of course, you cannot ask people to do something that they don't know what is. So these kind of logical things that totally make sense, we need to start, and in the past, we just said, well, you have to comply, but with what, I mean, excuse me. So some of these very down-to-earth things we can implement now, but I think if the country leaders do not say, this is how it will be, and until there's clarity for my industry, I will not do it. I think the process will take too long to have any effect in history. The digital omnibus will be out in November. We need to get it right now. The industry has been working seriously, looking through all the regulation, all the clauses, all the paragraphs, mapping them and giving suggestions. There is no excuse not to read the document and ask us if there is doubt, but I really hope that the member states will lean in and say, we're not going to do this because we want to grow in AI. We have other problems. We were promised an internal market where our companies could scale. They're not scaling here in Europe. They are leaving for the United States because they have DABA programs, procurement programs that follows research and development programs. So we have real problems that we can solve. Also in the EU now with the competitiveness fund, will we have a DARPA mechanism, procurement programs following? These are things that will matter. All this is just things that hold us back and add burden. And unless somebody's solving that and looking for the real problems, how to solve them and the opportunities for us, it will not change.
Well, I think this then leads us, and I'm going to come back to you, Oleksandr, because this is ultimately about how can we reframe and transform government services so that they are a cornerstone of national competitiveness, eat away at that lasagna. Okay. Oleksandr, Ukraine, you're doing this already. You're moving also to the agentic state. Is this part of the process?
Yeah. So nationally, as Minister of Digital Transformation, is leading to big tracks in AI. For now, first is DAI, where we want to entry point for all citizens, and it's could be like some popular AI agents, so it will be soon become a single intelligent interface for state services in Ukraine. And second one, it's Ukrainian language LLM. It's a lot of work and been developed together with Kyivstar in Ukraine, and reduce dependence of foreign models and strengthen digital sovereignty. And as the Minister of Economy, we focused on services for business, first of all, and like we told before about the deregulation as our main priority, and simplicity and trust. So, like I told before, is about how we launched first the AI license on the e-permit system, and maybe it's so sadly to say, but even in wartime, Ukraine so go faster in digitalizing, and we receive some, and like a vision from Ukraine, we receive some flexibility in this side because we need move faster And we have a lot of time for some decisions, some statistics, and we need to make very fast some steps. And I think why we are so fast in digitalizing for now in what time, because we just try and testing, and interesting insights that when we working with first AI license in Ukraine, we have a lot of compliance with AI Act from EU, because we're going to EU in future and we need to fully according to AI Act, and we're trying and working around compliance about EU Act, and it's a lot. But in a business case, it will work, and we fully according with EU Act, and why Estonia can import our solution and AI license for business. But if we want to scale with Ministry of Digital Transformation, that framework to like a license and permits for citizens, it's not work. So it's a lot of compliance. And we need to really work with the regulations in future. So we need a more faster Europe, like a lake for talents, for AI solutions, and growing up faster. Also, we see like next steps of the regulation. It's we're working with new law in Ministry of Economy that will give us possibility to move all of license and permits in Ukraine to declarative principle. So and the rest one, it's like a very short list in law, and it's specific list of license and permits. And that one we will engineering and digitalize full. So it's like a next our step in the regulation. And our digital agenda is very clear: is more data, better quality of data, and smarter analytics after all of it. It's drive better decisions and ultimately a better life for people.
I want to now come across and actually look at some examples. Mustafa, I'm going to come to you first. And what are some of the new models for the public-private partnerships between countries, between organizations such as yours, and leading European companies out there that you see that are working and that are being used to help move both corporates and nation states forwards?
There are quite a few examples. I just want to mention that I really love how Oleksandr's ministry also carries deregulation in its title. And you've said it's a lot. Let me just add to that, Oleksandr. In our latest Unlocking Europe's AI report, we identified that companies within the EU, these are private sector companies, right, that need their money to innovate, to generate revenue, to serve their customers, that they are amongst, for every 100 euros spent, they have to spend 40 euros to actually be compliant. I mean, just let that sink in before I continue. That's quite the statement, isn't it? So when it comes to private-public partnerships, one thing is, I'll reiterate what I said earlier, it's key that regulators, governmental entities have the capacity to actually dive into the details with us, to also get a acutely and modernized perspective of what mitigation mechanisms for their concerns look like today in the realities of hyperscale cloud solutions. That's one part. When it comes to other things, there are, thank God, already, especially in the startup ecosystem, many companies already starting to innovate with AI, for instance, on AWS. When we look at companies like Xfarm from Italy, for instance, that's farm management, right? That's farm management created in Italy, built on AWS services. That's now, Cecilia, you mentioned how many companies only have one cross-border interaction. They've been more successful, thank God, and they're serving more markets within the EU. But then on the other end, we also have startups like, they're spelled YSEOP, ESOP in France. And what they're doing is essentially they're tapping into AI services on cloud to bring or help pharmaceutical companies bring their medicines closer to market by becoming, by producing all the regulatory filings that they need. I mean, just imagine that. We need to use cutting-edge technologies to actually work around all those potholes. So those types of things are happening. But what private sector companies are really, really asking for, AI adoption already is much, much faster than mobile adoption, smartphone adoption was in the mid-2000s amongst enterprise customers. That's really interesting. What we also see there is, though, that being able to tap into governmental programs still is too tough for those for those enterprise customers. Startups, they are already 75% of them tapping into AI technologies, but for them, again, regulation always bears the risk, if it's not done right, to hamper their growth. Because on the other hand, if those things work hand in hand, if the enterprise customers are enabled to tap into AI to truly innovate, not just accelerate existing processes, and if on the other hand, we enable startups to continue to be able to grow because they don't get bogged down by things that they think they can't do or shouldn't be doing, I think that's what we need. Easier governmental funding, and the last part is, and tapping into existing governmental programs, and the last part ends up being public sector entities also tapping into AI and hyperscale cloud technologies.
Yeah.
That's because many, even the enterprise customers are saying, we would like to see that for us to become more bold in what we're doing too.
Definitely. I want to come to one quick point. We don't have a huge amount of time left, but an important one. We've talked a lot about the policies, the regulation, the need for deregulation. But Erkki, you brought it up earlier, talent. Okay, we can bring down some of these, or we hope to bring down some of these constraints here. But moving talent around within Europe and within countries is still a huge challenge for startups here. What do you think that we need to be doing differently in this front to enable and facilitate countries to be able to be more competitive through their talent?
Yes, of course. That's something we have already discussed. We don't even recognize each other's university degrees.
Yeah.
What we're talking about moving talent around. Or as Cecilia said, we're talking about the unified single market. If I graduate here from Tallinn, I can't even work as an engineer in Italy. Like, we haven't done the basis. So what we're talking about, I would even broaden it up. I just got thinking that we're not inventing or finding out something new here, let's be honest. Yeah. It has been discussions, I don't know, years and years, but I would even say it's a question between balance, because we're talking a lot about giving actually people, companies, private sector freedom, giving public a lot of more freedom. But maybe somebody remembers how Spider-Man uncle said to him, with great power comes great responsibility. But if I paraphrase it, with a lot of freedom comes a lot of responsibility. And we have gotten a little bit used to not wanting maybe the responsibility part. We want a lot of freedom, but it actually means you have to take care. You have to have responsibility, what you do. We have to trust the private sector to give them freedom, and actually, because private sector will always move faster. They will always innovate more than public sector. It's the way it is, that public sector is more conservative, and that's, I would say, it's the key change in Europe. If we want to make it, we have to be ready to give more freedom, and the people, not only companies, the public has to be ready to take more responsibility.
We definitely have an opportunity in the timing with regards to the talent moving around, both with the what's going on in the US right now with the H-1B visas, but also with China with their K visa. But I'm very much looking forward to coming back to the Talent Digital Summit at some point in the future and not having this same conversation because it not being needed. Okay, so if when we come back together at some point in the future, what is the single most important sort of non-GDP, let's not talk about the GDP here, metric to demonstrate that there has been success and movement here? So in the couple of minutes that we have left, what would you each pick as the metrics that you would use to show that we are making progress in being able to innovate, capitalize, build, and deploy better than we are today?
number of cross-border, scalable, innovative companies, European companies, and everybody else, but the ability to attract investment, both from Europeans and foreign companies into Europe, because the market is smooth. And the third one would be concrete problems that we have solved. We have the eastern border. We want this drone shield. We have all the companies that can deliver that. I can give you a stack tomorrow that can deliver that. Why don't we do a large-scale European procurement program, an innovation program, to deliver a drone shield at the border against Russia, all the way down, and a drone shield to protect our airports and our energy supply?
Very clear, thank you. Mustafa, what would be your metric?
You know what, I think it's all the metrics that we're looking at today. When you look at where AI truly helps, it's all of the customers utilizing it now or looking, and 75% of enterprise customers are already using it, right? What everyone is saying, this is going to transform my business. Everyone is saying that. Everyone understands that. Most of them are already seeing a net 30% increase in revenue where they tap into it. So what we will see is all the metrics that are important, that resemble how successful, innovative, how we measure our innovation, all the things that Cecilia mentioned, all of those metrics, them not just stagnating or going down, but rather continuing to help us advance on a global scale, they will remain important in the future because all of them will be impacted by AI.
Thank you, Oleksandr. What metrics are you using there?
I think it's, first of all, it's share of trusted AI system deployed, because it's really important, and it's critical sectors like defense, one in Ukraine, and of course is sovereignty and innovations, and also I will add like trust, transparency, and autonomy.
Thank you, Erkki.
I have a big dream, I would say, even that. Let's look how many most valued top 10, top 20 companies are created in Europe and actually staying here. 4, 5, 10. So that would be, if we do everything right, as Cecilia mentioned, we have so much potential. We have all the things together. We have to put them together. And in a couple of years, 5, 10 years, we would have not 0 most valuable companies here in Europe, but 5, 7. So that's my ambitious goal.
I love it. Thank you very much to you all for your incredibly pragmatic, clear, practical ways in which we can do everything here. I look forward to having a different conversation about those metrics in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great idea. Now we just need to do it.
Yeah.